In The Lord of the Rings, the three elven rings, Narya, Nenya, and Vilya, are powerful yet mysterious artifacts. While the One Ring is the central focus of the story, the elven rings remain in the background, only fully revealed near the end. Gandalf, Galadriel, and Elrond each possess one of these rings, but their significance is often overlooked. The secrecy surrounding the elven rings is intentional. Unlike the One Ring, which was created for domination and control, the elven rings were designed for preservation, healing, and protection. Their powers were meant to nurture the beauty and peace of Middle-earth, not to conquer it. This key difference sets them apart from the other rings of power. The elven rings were forged by Celebrimbor in secret, without Sauron's direct involvement, making them resistant to his corrupting influence. However, because they were still linked to the One Ring through the magic used in their creation, the elves could not openly wear them while Sauron held the One Ring. Only after Sauron's downfall were the elven rings safe to use. In this chapter, we explore together how these rings, though quiet in their influence, play a vital role in the fight against Sauron. Gandalf's Narya brings hope and encouragement. Galadriel's Nenya preserves the beauty of Lothlorien, and Elrond's Vilya helps protect Rivendell. Rather than seeking power for themselves, the elven rings are about nurturing and safeguarding what is good in the world. The creation of the three elven rings. The origins of the three elven rings lie in the Second Age of Middle-earth, during a time when Sauron, disguised as Anatar, the Lord of Gifts, sought to deceive the elves into creating rings of power. His true aim was to use these rings to control and dominate all of Middle-earth, and through the One Ring, dominate the others. However, the elves were wise, and they were cautious about Anatar's offers, sensing something dark behind his charm. While most of the elven leaders rejected his gifts, Celebrimbor, a master craftsman and descendant of Feanor, the greatest of the elven smiths, accepted Anatar's teachings. Over the course of several centuries, Celebrimbor learned the craft of ring-making from Anatar, unknowingly acquiring the dark knowledge needed to forge these rings. Together with his fellow elven smiths of Eregion, he forged the rings of power, the 9 rings for men, the 7 for dwarves, and 3 for the elves. However, Celebrimbor forged the 3 elven rings on his own, without Sauron's direct involvement. This was a critical moment in their creation, as it set the elven rings apart from the others. While the other rings were tainted by Sauron's direct influence, the elven rings were not, because they were made outside his control. They were created with the intention of preserving and protecting, not conquering or corrupting. The secrecy of their creation came at a cost. After the forging of the One Ring in Sauron's Black Forge in Mount Doom, Sauron tried to control the elves by using the One Ring. However, the elves, realizing the danger, immediately removed the 3 rings, preventing Sauron from enslaving them. This marked the beginning of the elven rings' unique journey, ones that were created by Sauron's craft, but freed from his touch, the powers of the elven rings. While the exact powers of the elven rings are never fully detailed in The Lord of the Rings, they are hinted at in various ways through the actions of their bearers. Each ring is associated with a specific element, fire, water, and air, and the powers granted by these rings are aligned with preservation, healing, and protection. Narya, the Ring of Fire, was worn by Gandalf. This ring's power is often associated with rekindling hope, inspiring resistance against despair, and providing strength to those in need. Gandalf's very presence, particularly during times of great peril, brings an aura of hope and courage. His efforts to inspire others to resist Sauron's forces, his battles with the Nazgul, and his role in rallying the free peoples of Middle-earth are all manifestations of Narya's power. His acts of encouragement, from the Battle of Helm's Deep to his speech to Aragorn in the Paths of the Dead, reflect the ability of Narya to ignite hearts, to rally those who are weary, and to rekindle the flame of resistance in dark times. Nenya, the Ring of Water, was worn by Galadriel. Nenya's power is primarily one of preservation and protection. Galadriel used this ring to preserve the beauty, serenity, and timelessness of Lothlorien, making it a sanctuary untouched by the decay of time. Under Galadriel's rule, Lothlorien was a place of peace, a living testament to the elves' reverence for nature and beauty. Nenya's influence also helped to shield Lothlorien from the prying eyes of Sauron, who could not see or reach it, despite his vast power. This concealment was essential for the survival of the elves in Middle-earth, as it allowed them to live apart from the growing darkness that Sauron cast over the world. However, as Galadriel warns Frodo, the ring's power would eventually fade with the destruction of the One Ring, and Lothlorien would also fade with it. Vilya, the Ring of Air, was worn by Elrond. Vilya is the most potent of the 3 elven rings and is associated with healing, guidance, and control over the air and winds. Elrond, as Lord of Rivendell, used its power to keep the valley safe, ensuring that it remained a haven for all those seeking refuge from Sauron's forces. Vilya's healing powers are perhaps most clearly seen when Elrond heals Frodo's wound from the Morgul blade. He is able to heal wounds that others, like Aragorn and Gandalf, cannot, showcasing the depth of Vilya's power. Like Nenya and Narya, Vilya's influence was subtle, working quietly to ensure that Rivendell remained a bastion of wisdom and refuge. However, Vilya's power also involved nurturing and guiding the fate of those within its reach, particularly through Elrond's wisdom and counsel, which helped to steer key events in Middle-earth toward victory over Sauron. The role of the 3 elven rings in the fight against Sauron. The 3 elven rings play a crucial but often subtle role in the events of the Lord of the Rings. Their powers are not used for direct confrontation against Sauron, but are instead focused on preservation, healing, and hope, qualities that stand in stark contrast to Sauron's hunger for domination. One of the key reasons the elven rings could not be used openly during Sauron's reign was their connection to the One Ring. While their powers were not corrupted by Sauron, they were still linked to the One Ring through the magic used in their forging. This meant that, as long as Sauron held the One Ring, the elves could not use their rings openly without risking Sauron's influence over them. This is why, after Sauron's defeat in the Second Age and the loss of the One Ring, the elves began to wear their rings again. By the time of the Lord of the Rings, the 3 bearers of the elven rings, Gandalf, Galadriel, and Elrond, were key figures in the fight against Sauron. They understood the nature of the One Ring and its destructive power, and their rings represented the opposite of what Sauron sought: preservation over destruction, healing over corruption, and hope over despair. For example, Gandalf's role as a guide and protector to Frodo and the Fellowship is shaped by Narya's power. His encouragement, counsel, and wisdom helped the Fellowship navigate the darkness of their journey. Similarly, Galadriel's role is tied to Nenya's preservation magic. While Lothlorien provides a temporary refuge from the darkness of Sauron's armies, it also serves as a beacon of what will be lost if the One Ring is not destroyed. Her final decision to pass her ring to Frodo is a moment of surrender, acknowledging that even the most powerful elven forces must eventually yield to time. Elrond's healing abilities are also key to the success of the Fellowship. His use of Vilya allowed him to heal Frodo's wound and provide the counsel necessary to help the Fellowship hold together in the face of overwhelming odds. In the end, the Elven Rings highlight one of the core themes of Tolkien's work: the battle between power and selflessness. The One Ring represents the pursuit of dominion and control, while the 3 Elven Rings represent the nurturing of life, hope, and preservation. These contrasting ideas help to shape the central conflict of the Lord of the Rings, where victory is achieved not through strength alone, but through the quiet, enduring power of friendship, hope, and self-sacrifice. The secrecy of the Elven Rings. One of the most intriguing aspects of the 3 Elven Rings is the secrecy surrounding their existence and use. For most of the Lord of the Rings' powers remain hidden, and even their bearers, Gandalf, Galadriel, and Elrond, do not openly display or discuss their rings. The secrecy surrounding these rings is not just a matter of personal discretion, but also reflects the deep wisdom and caution of the elves. Initially, the secrecy of the Elven Rings comes from their creation during the Second Age. Celebrimbor forged them without Sauron's direct involvement, and once he realized the true nature of Sauron's ambitions with the One Ring, he chose to keep the Elven Rings hidden. This was especially important because the elves understood that as long as Sauron held the One Ring, he could influence the bearers of the other rings through the latent connection between them. They knew that wearing the rings openly could draw Sauron's attention, potentially putting their very souls in jeopardy. Galadriel's secrecy about her ring, Nenya, is especially notable. When Frodo arrives in Lothlorien, he notices the ring on Galadriel's finger. but is told that it is forbidden to speak of it. Her refusal to openly acknowledge the ring's existence mirrors her own internal struggle with the ring's power. She, like the other elves, does not wish to succumb to the temptation to dominate or control others. Her decision to withhold the full truth about her ring highlights the elves' cautious approach to power. This secrecy also extends to Gandalf's Narya. Gandalf never makes the ring's power a focal point of his actions, preferring to inspire others through his words and deeds rather than overt displays of magic. Even in his moments of greatest power, such as when he defends the Fellowship from the Nazgul or confronts Saruman, Gandalf rarely draws attention to the source of his strength. This quiet, almost passive use of the ring is a reflection of Gandalf's humility and his understanding that true power comes from wisdom and restraint, not domination. Thus, the secrecy of the 3 elven rings is a key aspect of their effectiveness. The elves wield these rings subtly, using their powers to preserve and protect rather than to conquer or control. The ring's true strength lies not in their ability to control others, but in their ability to quietly influence and nurture what is good and pure in Middle-earth. The influence of the elven rings on the world of men. Although the 3 elven rings were primarily worn by elves, their influence extended far beyond the borders of elvenkind. The ring's power, especially the powers of preservation, protection, and healing, subtly impacted the fate of men and other free peoples of Middle-earth, providing a quiet, enduring defense against Sauron's malevolent forces. One of the most significant ways the elven rings influenced men was through Gandalf, the ring-bearer of Narya, the Ring of Fire. Gandalf's role in Middle-earth was pivotal, as he was not only a guide to the free peoples, but also the driving force behind the resistance to Sauron's domination. His powers of encouragement, healing, and hope helped rally men like Aragorn, Boromir, and Faramir, instilling them with courage and determination even in the darkest of times. Without Gandalf's presence, it is unlikely that the Fellowship would have survived the many trials it faced, and without his guidance, Aragorn would not have become the King of Gondor. Gandalf's influence over men is a direct result of the power of Narya, which is linked to rekindling hearts and inspiring people to rise above fear. For example, when Gandalf returns after his battle with the Balrog, he provides the hope that the free peoples need to mount their resistance against Sauron's forces. He rallies the armies of Rohan and Gondor, showing that even in the face of overwhelming odds, hope can prevail. This act of inspiring courage and hope is the manifestation of the power of Narya, and it touches the hearts of men in a profound way. Similarly, Galadriel's Nenya, the Ring of Water, had a subtler but equally important impact on men. Galadriel's influence, especially in Lothlorien, was key to providing refuge to the Fellowship and other travelers. Her sanctuary was a place of healing and protection, not only for elves, but also for men, dwarves, and hobbits. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli all benefited from the peace and wisdom of Lothlorien. The tranquility of Lothlorien helped to heal physical and emotional wounds, and its very existence reminded the free peoples of the beauty and purity of the world before it was marred by Sauron's darkness. Furthermore, Elrond, with the Ring of Air, Vilya, served as a crucial figure in the history of men, particularly in the realm of healing and guidance. His role in healing Frodo after the Morgul wound is perhaps the most direct example of Vilya's power to heal. However, Elrond's wisdom and counsel also played an essential role in the survival of the free peoples. His ability to guide and protect Rivendell, as well as to steer the decisions of those around him, ensured that men, in their alliance with the elves, had a refuge and source of strength in the fight against Sauron. The tragic fate of the Elven Rings after the One Ring's destruction. The destruction of the One Ring at Mount Doom was a cataclysmic event that had far-reaching consequences, not just for Sauron, but for the 3 elven rings as well. The elves had long understood that their rings were tied to the One Ring, and that their power was bound up in the fate of Sauron's ring. Once the One Ring was destroyed, the 3 elven rings lost their power, and their influence over Middle-earth began to fade. Galadriel's Nenya, which had helped preserve and protect Lothlorien, lost its ability to shield the realm from the ravages of time. With the ring's destruction, Lothlorien began to fade. The elves of Lothlorien, who had been preserved and protected by the power of Nenya, were now bound by the mortal world and the passing of time. As Galadriel foretold, the destruction of the One Ring marked the end of their realm's golden age. Lothlorien would slowly lose its ethereal beauty, and its people would gradually depart for the undying lands in the west. This loss mirrored the diminishing of elvenkind in Middle-earth, as the elves' time was coming to an end, and the Age of Men was about to begin. Rivendell, protected by Elrond's Vilya, also began to fade. While it remained a place of great importance for a time, it too lost its sustaining power after the One Ring's destruction. The healing and wisdom that Rivendell had long offered to the free peoples began to wane, and by the time of Aragorn's death, the last vestiges of Rivendell's greatness were gone. Elrond's departure to the west marked the final end of an era for the elves, and with him went the last of the Elven Ring's influence. Gandalf's Narya, the Ring of Fire, similarly lost its power. While Gandalf continued to guide the people of Middle-earth for a time, the world was changing, and his role was coming to an end. As the elves sailed westward and the One Ring was destroyed, Gandalf's mission was complete. His departure for the undying lands symbolized the fading of the old world and the passing of the elves from Middle-earth, leaving men to carry the future forward without the elven magic that had once helped to preserve and protect them. The legacy of the Elven Rings. The legacy of the three Elven Rings is one of quiet power, wisdom, and selflessness. Unlike the other Rings of Power, which were forged to control and dominate, the three Elven Rings were created with the aim of preservation, healing, and inspiring hope. Their bearers, Gandalf, Galadriel, and Elrond, used their rings not for personal gain, but to serve and guide others in the fight against Sauron's dark ambitions. The destruction of the One Ring marked the end of the Elven Ring's power, but their legacy lived on in the actions of those who bore them. Gandalf's counsel, Galadriel's wisdom, and Elrond's healing all played crucial roles in ensuring that Middle-earth stood a chance against the darkness that threatened to consume it. Through their rings, these three figures were able to offer something that Sauron could never provide: hope and selfless leadership. As the elves depart from Middle-earth and the Fourth Age begins, the legacy of the Elven Rings remains. Though the physical rings themselves were lost, their power endures in the actions of those who followed the example of the elves. People like Aragorn, who becomes the King of Gondor, and Frodo, whose journey embodies the struggle against the corrupting influence of the One Ring. The influence of the Elven Rings is felt in the quiet courage and self-sacrifice of those who fought to preserve the world from darkness, and in the gradual, peaceful decline of the elves, whose time in Middle-earth had come to an end. The role of the Elven Rings in the shaping of Middle-earth's history. The three Elven Rings, though shrouded in mystery and largely hidden from the view of other races, played a profound role in shaping the history of Middle-earth. They were not mere artifacts of magic. They were symbols of elven perseverance, vision, and sacrifice, and their influence transcended the simple concept of power. Their creation, their quiet stewardship, and their eventual fading at the end of the Third Age marked pivotal moments in the world's development. The Elven Rings and the enduring influence of the elves. In many ways, the Elven Rings represent the slow but inevitable departure of the elves from Middle-earth. The elves are the most ancient and noble of the free peoples, but as time passes, their diminishing presence reflects the shift in the world from an age of magic to an age of men. The rings, while capable of protecting and preserving the world around them, were always meant to serve as a bridge between ages, ensuring that the beauty, wisdom, and purity of the elves would leave a lasting mark on the world. When Celebrimbor forged the three rings, his vision was to preserve what was good and pure in Middle-earth, preventing the natural decay of time from eroding the beauty of elven lands. With Nenya, Narya, and Vilya, the elves could create sanctuaries of peace and harmony, ensuring that the age-old beauty of places like Lothlorien and Rivendell would endure long after the wars and struggles of other peoples had passed. These rings, however, also highlighted the elves' realization that they could not forestall the inevitable transition to a new age. The destruction of the One Ring, and with it, the fading of the Elven Rings, symbolized the closing of an era. The importance of Rivendell and Lothlorien in the history of Middle-earth cannot be overstated. These elven refugees, whose existence was subtly protected and enhanced by the rings, served as bastions of wisdom and healing in a world increasingly ravaged by the forces of Sauron. Rivendell, under Elrond's care, became a haven for those who sought guidance and respite, such as Aragorn, Frodo, and Gandalf. The Ring of Air, Vilya, allowed Elrond to maintain Rivendell's sanctuary-like qualities, ensuring that the wisdom of the elves was not lost. In Lothlorien, Galadriel's Nenya kept the forest in a state of timeless beauty. But beyond their physical allure, both of these realms represented something deeper: the legacy of the elves' wisdom, their long history, and their preservation of the light that once filled the world. It was these places that stood as a reminder of a world before Sauron's rise, and they were where the hopes of the free peoples were nurtured. The events of the War of the Ring showed that even as the elves prepared to leave Middle-earth, they remained its quiet stewards, guiding the free peoples toward victory. The rings also served as a subtle catalyst for the transformation of other key figures and peoples in Middle-earth. Gandalf's Narya, the Ring of Fire, inspired and galvanized those he guided, particularly Aragorn. Through his wisdom and influence, Gandalf was able to unite men, elves, and dwarves in the face of a common enemy, reminding them that cooperation, hope, and perseverance were the keys to victory. Galadriel's Nenya, symbolizing water and preservation, subtly influenced those who came into contact with her. Her presence, along with her ability to heal and inspire, was not only vital to the survival of the Fellowship, but also to the eventual fate of Frodo Baggins. Galadriel's influence helped Frodo grow in courage and determination, even in the face of the overwhelming darkness of the One Ring. It was through this guidance, coupled with her ring, that Frodo, along with the other members of the Fellowship, played a central role in the ultimate defeat of Sauron. Through these elven rings, the elves left an indelible imprint on the world. Their influence was not one of domination, but one of quiet leadership, healing, and preservation. The elven rings were a final gift to Middle-earth, a testament to the elves' desire to protect the world even as they prepared to sail away. The end, the legacy of the elven rings. As the elves sailed into the west, their rings faded, and their power left Middle-earth, but their legacy endured. Gandalf, Galadriel, and Elrond, the three bearers of the elven rings, had guided the free peoples in their darkest hour, offering hope, wisdom, and healing. With the destruction of the One Ring, the elven magic of preservation and protection also diminished, but it left behind a world changed for the better. The elves' departure marked the dawn of the Fourth Age, where men would take the mantle of stewardship over Middle-earth. Though the elven rings were no more, the ideals of the elves, hope, compassion, and wisdom, would live on in the hearts of those who followed them. The beauty of the world, once preserved by the elves, remained, a silent reminder of their enduring influence on the history of Middle-earth. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.